So today we will be talking about our latest release, Backendless 3.0. I'm going to start with a presentation just to give you a higher level overview of what went into the release and what it means, and then I'll switch to a presentation of the actual product, just so you can see what it is like. At any point of time, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar control panel. There is a questions section. There is a section for chat. I will be periodically going back to my control panel here just to see if there are any questions that I can answer. So Backendless 3.0, we have released it a little bit less than a month ago. It's really is a significant release for us. It had been in the works for quite some time, and a lot of thought went into it. And it's really by far the most significant release of Backendless that we have ever done. In today's agenda, I will be talking about new product additions that we have introduced, starting with Backendless 3.0. There are a lot of changes on the pricing, and I think this is one of the most exciting things from the business perspective. We have introduced a new product, which is Backendless Marketplace, that I will be talking about, and will also give you an overview of what it looks like and how to work with it. We added support for external databases, so you can connect your own data sources to your backend application that is running in Backendless and work with the data that resides in your own database. We also introduced support for PHP, and I think it came out really cool. And for those of you who work with PHP, I think you will find it very exciting in the way PHP can now be integrated into a mobile backend as a service platform. Finally, there are a lot of improvements that I will go over if we have time. They are not as significant as everything else that you see here in the list. Nevertheless, I'd like to show you what they are. So if you are already working with Backendless, you'll be able to start taking advantage of them. So now let's just dig in and start with the product additions. So previously, if you are familiar with Backendless and worked with it prior to Backendless 3.0, you know that we had Backendless Online and Backendless Enterprise. So that has changed. It was sort of repackaged and to reflect some other changes that we will get to. So at this point, there are three product additions. There is a standalone Backendless, which is a version of Backendless that you can install on your own servers. There is Managed Backendless, which is a dedicated installation of Backendless that we stage and install for you and your application. And there is Backendless Cloud. Backendless Cloud is sort of a new name for Backendless Online. That's the centralized installation that is running on our clusters and our servers, and you can come in, register your app, and start building. So let's just dig in a little bit further and talk about standalone Backendless. Right now, you can get installers for Linux and Mac OS. We are adding installer for Windows. There is also an installer available that just gives you a full-blown virtual machine. And the idea is very simple. You just install and get a complete installation of Backendless, of everything that it entails on your own computer, whether it's in your own development computer, your data center in your organization, or your instances in the cloud, whether it is Amazon or Rackspace or Google Code, VMware Cloud, doesn't matter. As long as there is a Linux instance and very soon a Windows machine, you'll be able to run Backendless on it. And whenever you run standalone Backendless, it has virtually no limitations. So it's a completely unlimited, unrestricted platform. So if you know, with Backendless Cloud, whenever you log in, there are some limitations on the free tier that we have. Here, there are absolutely no limitations. And the best part of it is that whenever you run standalone Backendless on your computer, in the cloud or in your own data center or your own personal computer, it is completely free for development and production purposes, so long that all the components of Backendless platform are running on the same computer or the same virtual machine. And we don't care how big that computer is. You could get like a super supercomputer with, I don't know, 128 megabytes of memory, virtually infinite number of cores or CPUs, as long as it's the same physical machine or virtual machine, however backendless is bound, that installation is going to be free. As soon as you start adding additional instances to your cluster or additional virtual machines, we don't care how you scale it out. As long as you start scaling it out by redistributing load or moving database to one VM or another or one computer and leaving some other parts of it on another computer, that's when the license would be required. And the licensing, there are various options available for you. We typically just work with you to accommodate your interests and your budgets and so on, and come up with the pricing that is beneficial for both parties. But nevertheless, if you're developing or if you know that you can get by with a single computer, standalone backendless is free of charge. And I think that's a huge news, because no other mobile backend as a service as feature-rich as backendless does something similar. So now to illustrate this in a picture, here you get the standalone backendless installer, put it in the cloud, in the premise, one server, completely free. 2 or additional servers, a license would be required. So that's pretty much the gist of standalone backendless. We are evolving it pretty much at the same pace, exactly the same way as we're working on backendless cloud. Typically, a release of standalone backendless lags a couple of days or perhaps a week. So whenever new features are released to backendless cloud, you can get them pretty much right away as soon as we announce. And then with some lag, an installer is updated for standalone backendless, so you can reinstall and get the latest stuff on it. Now, let's move on to managed backendless. It's the same backendless, okay, but with a caveat, or the most important differentiator is that it is an installation that we manage for you, for your application or for your company, that is completely isolated from all other apps. It has absolutely no functional limitations, and we monitor it 24/7. There is a service level agreement that guarantees the uptime and certain response time that is quite satisfactory, and the installation is ready to scale out pretty much infinitely in response to the traffic that is caused by your app or your apps. And the process isolation and the data isolation is important, and it's probably one of the most important differentiators from backendless cloud. So if you can think of backendless cloud as a shared hosting, this is the dedicated hosting of the backendless backend built specifically for you. This one is not free for the reason that a lot of extra resources are being allocated and a lot of extra work is actually being done to maintain this. But for those who really have building our mission critical applications and require some sort of isolation of the data in the process, this is an ideal solution for you. So for instance, if you're building a healthcare related app and you are bound by the HIPAA compliance, then this will provide the appropriate level of isolation for you, and so you can satisfy the compliance requirements. Now, backendless cloud, it's pretty much what you might know as backendless online. It is our centralized installation that we maintain, we monitor, we make sure that it scales appropriately. It is highly scalable, so we have some applications that are generating a lot of load, and it really can accommodate applications from small to large. Here, you can just register. Registration is very simple on our website, and you can start building your applications right away. All SDKs that we have, and at this point we have 7 of them, they are automatically pre-configured to work with backendless cloud. However, if you're going back to standalone and managed, if you are going to be working with one of those, then an SDK just would need an additional endpoint to point it to your installation, but otherwise this one is the default setting. Now, as far as the pricing for backendless cloud, there is also a change here. Previously, we had 3 different pricing plans. All of them are gone. So if you go to backendless.com/pricing, you will see that there is really just one pricing plan. And in the essence, it's not just a pricing plan, it's just a one tier that is free. Granted, there are some limitations because making it completely free without any limitations would just ruin us. We still have to run a business here. So there are some limits in there that you can overcome by buying additional, what we call them, function packs. And we'll get to it once we are on the next step in this presentation. But the limits that we have in the free plan, I believe, are very, very generous. So for instance, a limit of the number of API calls per second with Backendless Cloud is 50 API requests per second, which is huge. Some of our competitors start their free plan with 30 API requests per second. So here we're giving you 20 more, and where others would charge close to $200 per month, we offer it to you at no cost with way more features. So Backendless Cloud is definitely a very, very powerful and extremely affordable solution if you are building mobile backend as a service applications. Let me take a look if there are any questions or comments that I could address. And if not, we will just move on. All right, so no questions so far. Good. Let's continue with this presentation. So Backendless Marketplace, that's a completely new product that really completes our platform. I'll talk about the platform in a second. But as far as the marketplace, it's exactly what you would expect. From the way we see it, it's a server-side app store. So that which can contain, in our case, services, features, code generators, pretty much anything and everything that could enhance your backend. And it is integrated right into Backendless console. So whenever you work with your backend through Backendless console, you can see the marketplace and you can enhance your backend with anything that is available in the marketplace. All the process for purchasing a particular component, whether it's a feature or a service, and soon code generators, you can just do it right from your console, and no additional coding or additional processes are required. It's automatically injected into your backend and becomes available for your application. Right now, we have a more or less tight control over Marketplace since it was just introduced, and we are working out some wrinkles. It is quite stable at this point, but very soon we will be opening up Marketplace to everyone. So if you are a developer who came up with some really cool service or something that just does something useful, you will be able to package that service and publish it into the marketplace, and it will become available for everyone. Whenever you publish your own code into marketplace, you can name your own price or say that it is free. And Backendless automatically takes care of service distribution, making sure that it's available for all the developers, procurement. Whenever someone wants to install that service in their backend, it automatically is procured and becomes available. And of course, we take care of the billing. If you are going to publish service for a fee, we will cut our commission fee, so to speak, and then do the automatic payouts to the developers for the remaining part. We plan to support all kinds of different billing schemes. So you can say that your product, whenever your service that you publish into marketplace, could be available for a certain number of dollars per month, or a certain amount on a per invocation basis, or have a free trial and then start doing monthly billing of a fixed amount. Whatever it is, you will be able to come up with a billing scheme and a pricing scheme that truly reflects in Backendless how you would like to bill your customers. It really will become a distribution channel for your code. One important thing with Backendless Marketplace and just the Backendless platform in general that I'd like to point out is this is really not a new thing. There are some marketplaces available for cloud mobile systems out there. Where we are different is this is not a proxy place, so to speak. So you of course you can publish a reference to a service that runs elsewhere, but here the core difference is you can publish your own code, and then it will run within the Backendless environment, and we will scale it infinitely. So here it will be completely automatic. So this is not a directory of services where the actual service is running elsewhere. It is also a runtime environment. Also, there is an integration between managed backendless and standalone backendless in the marketplace. So anyone who downloads standalone backendless and runs it in their own infrastructure or in the cloud, they can still take advantage of the services that you will build. And in a highly secure manner, we provide additional security where that code is still resides on our servers, but can be executed in the binary form on those individual installations. So Backendless Marketplace will be one of the largest and the most significant products that we have in our platform. Speaking of the platform, I know this slide looks a little bit odd because I moved that title to the side since that image is fairly large. Here, this is a diagram of the backendless platform, and here you can see that it consists in this diagram of three products. So there is backendless MBAS right here, backendless API engine, and backendless hosting. And then somewhere underneath, if you could just imagine the second layer, that is where two layers are overimposed each other, there is backendless marketplace, which you cannot see it here just to keep things simple. So backendless MBAS, it's the core. This is where the services reside. We have built-in services that are available within backendless, and those are the services that we publish the APIs for. So user service, geo service, data persistence, media file messaging, and so on. However, with the help of Backendless API engine, this thing right here, you can publish your own Java code and PHP code. We'll get to that soon. And then this code is deployed right here into Backendless MBAS and becomes a custom service. So Backendless API engine is that container and the service generator that can turn arbitrary Java or PHP and soon JavaScript code as a service, which is going to be subject to exactly the same rules and security and so on within MBAS. And then as far as backendless hosting, this is a smart hosting for MBAS applications where that can contain either static content or dynamic content. Right now, as far as dynamic content, we support Node.js. And you can use it for your purposes, either to deploy your files for your application and reference them from the MBAS system, or just run your custom code. And if you're building a web application, it can actually host the entire web app within. So that's backendless hosting. And of course, with Marketplace, it can be used to enhance every single layer in this diagram. So with services, you will be able to install additional services out of Marketplace into MBAS. With Backendless API engine, you will be able to extend the code generators and then add additional code generators to create new versions of SDKs. With hosting, you'll be able to download scripts that just do something useful and thus enhance your backend with some additional hosting scripting that is available right here. All right, so here, let's see, just checking the questions. No, we're good. So that's where we stand as far as the backendless platform. So this, what you see on your screen schematically, is available in all three editions of the product: Backendless Cloud, Standalone, and Managed. You get exactly the same thing. The difference is, of course, in some limitations in the cloud, no limitations for Managed and Standalone. Okay, let's move on to the next item on our agenda: external databases. We have heard time and again from prospects and customers that we work with that come to Backendless and they say, we already have a lot of data. We're basically executing our mobile strategy. We have an existing desktop or browser-based application, and we're creating a mobile app. So that mobile app that we're building with Backendless needs to work with existing data. And that existing data resides either in MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, really just any kind of external database. So we needed to come up with a way to allow customers using Backendless to integrate Backendless and the apps built with Backendless with databases residing elsewhere. And this is what we have done with external databases. Using a super intuitive interface, you can activate a database connector which resides in Marketplace for any given database. And in there, when you activate this connector, you provide connection information about your database. And then within Backendless console, you can just see your data. You can see views, store procedures. You can see all the tables and so on. And you can start using Backendless SDKs, which we provide for all the clients that we have: Android, iOS, JavaScript, Windows Phone, and so on, PHP. We'll talk about it soon. Or REST. You can start using those SDKs and APIs we document, exactly the same APIs, to talk to your database and execute full CRUD, which is create, retrieve, update, delete. So think about it as a way to really restify your existing databases. You activate it in Backendless, and your SQL Server data immediately gets REST interface that you can use to communicate with your database through Backendless. And on top of this, there is security, there is analytics, there is a way to do everything that Backendless does, even though the data resides elsewhere. Extremely, extremely powerful feature. We're working on support for code generation, which means that you'll be able to integrate your database, generate client-side code for, let's say, Objective-C or Java or PHP, and start building your app that automatically communicates with your database through Backendless. So that's what external databases are in the context of Backendless 3.0. Let's move on. PHP support. So PHP support is interesting. You would think that, Backendless being a mobile backend as a service, we add support more on the client side in terms of additional SDKs. But we heard time and again that people want to start expanding the backend support with either custom business logic or whatever using PHP. So in response to that, we created PHP SDK, or Backendless SDK for PHP, that gives you support for all the APIs that Backendless has through PHP using extremely intuitive APIs. So you can just take advantage of everything that Backendless does now natively in PHP. We also expanded support for business logic in Backendless, where you can start building custom business logic using PHP and expand support for your backend with additional logic that just runs natively in PHP. You can generate your code, and I'll show you how that works once we are done with PowerPoint. And it is just as good as our Java support. In fact, it is pretty much identical to how Java business logic works in Backendless. And we'll get to that in our demo. I think there is a question here that someone asked. All right, there is a question whether there is a code generation for Swift. It is coming. We have a bunch of tickets in our internal system, many of which are closed to add support for Swift code generation. Right now, the code generation that we have for iOS is in Objective-C, and we are adding support for Swift. Of course, down the line, what we're going to do is we will migrate all the code generation to Marketplace. So there will be just sort of enhancements in Marketplace for various languages. So if you will need Swift, you'll just install it from Marketplace, and the same Backendless installation that you have will automatically start supporting Swift code generation. The framework for code generation is going to open up, so anyone can actually start building code generators for Backendless and put them in the Marketplace, and perhaps charge a fee for that, or if you want to make it free, you would be able to do it yourself. All right, so that's PHP support. Before we go to Q&A, let me switch to a browser. And here, I'd like to run a couple of demos just to demonstrate how various things work in terms of what we have discussed. In terms of standalone, I'm not going to show you a whole lot because it is going to be exactly the same interface from the way you would be working with Backendless. You can get those installers if you go to backendless.com/downloads. There are links there that you can just follow the link and get the installer. Once you install it, everything's going to be running on your own computer, and you will get to experience exactly the same thing. So first thing that I want to show you is the actual marketplace. When if for those who are not familiar with Backendless, what you are looking at right now is a Backendless console, and I like to refer to it as really a front end for one's backend, administrative front end. So here you can see all your data, you can see all your files, you can configure security policies, you can configure security roles and so on. You can drive your business logic or code generation. But before we go to any of those sections, let me show you Marketplace. You will see there is a new icon here called Marketplace. Once you go here, it will show a list of various categories, and those categories are MBAS function packs, connectors, code generators, and services. Right now, the section that is the richest is the function packs. So these function packs are designed to work with the cloud version of Backendless. These functions packs do not even show up for standalone or managed for the reason that they're not needed. And then these guys are needed here for the reason that they give you an ability to expand on the limits that exist in Backendless Cloud. So if you need additional versions for environments for your app, or additional storage for the GeoPoints, or additional storage file system, you just find a function pack, click on the button, purchase it, and then that removes or expands a particular limitation. So this all function packs shows everything, and there are categorized views for individual function packs. Next one is connectors. Right now, the connectors that we support are for databases. And here, as I was talking about earlier, there are database connectors for SQL Server, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgre, and Oracle. The way this works is you click on a button, and here you would just provide information about your database. And I already had installed a connector for MySQL. You can actually see right here, if I go to edit, this is a demo database, which is Sakila, which is provided, I believe, by Oracle or MySQL. And since it is installed, if I go to the data screen, this is the internal storage, and as you can see, it says Backendless storage, but I can switch to the data connector. So if I click the data connector, it shows me a list of tables which exist in that external database that runs and resides on some other server, elsewhere. But you can see all of the data in this individual tables. You can see your views. Here's a list of views. You can actually run the views. It runs it for you, and it shows you all the data. You can see your store procedures, and in fact, for each store procedure, it gives you the form based on the input, in, out arguments, and so on, and you can run your store procedures. So here, since we can see this data, if we were to start executing REST requests for your external storage, you would just be able to use the APIs. In fact, here, let's say if we switch to REST console and click Get, this is the JSON response for the actor table that resides in our MySQL database located elsewhere. So, and this just made a REST request. In fact, if I open the network tab and just do the XHR, click Get, you will see that this is the request that the browser made, which is a REST request, and this is the response that we got from Backendless from the external database. Very, very easy to use. As far if you are already familiar with Backendless APIs, you do not need to learn anything new. You can just use exactly the same APIs to communicate with your own external databases. Right now, code generation is not working yet for external databases. We're publishing it very, very soon, and you'll be able to switch to code generation, select Android, iOS. Here you will just select Java classes if it is Android for the defined data tables. Once you download project, it will give you all the code to work with your external database, all the generated code. So the amount of code you would need to write really becomes super, super small. So that's the story as far as the external databases. Now, Going back to Marketplace, you see that in the section for connectors, there are some categories that are disabled here, like file storage, message queuing, identity management. The architecture of Backendless that we have prepared when we were working on the Marketplace will allow us to start creating additional connectors in a similar way as databases for other parts of the product. So for instance, for identity management, you will see a connector for, let's say, Active Directory or LDAP or various other identity management systems that you will be able to use to integrate identity management right into your Backendless backend. Similarly, for file storage, let's say if you want to store files in Dropbox or FTP or S3, there will be those connectors there as well. And just simply by activating such a connector, you will just drive how Backendless works on the back end. It's sort of like back end of the back end. So this is what the connectors are going to be doing here. For code generators, it's pretty much self-explanatory. I already answered the question about Swift. This is where they will show up. So right now, all these things are zero because Marketplace is fairly new. We are making changes. We are implementing many services and connectors and code generators, so they will start showing up over time, and so many of them will show up fairly soon. Finally, services. These are going to be the services that you can use that will just do something useful. So for instance, PayPal integration service, or integration with Twilio, or integration for, let's say, creating QR codes, you name it. So you will be able to start publishing those services from your applications into Marketplace. So that's the placeholder for services. So as you can see, Marketplace is going to be extremely rich functionally, because it will just start expanding the horizons of your backend. All right, let's talk about PHP. So with PHP, a couple of things here. So if you go to backendless.com/download, downloads, you will see SDK for PHP. And with SDK for PHP, I did create a little sample here. So in this case, it's a PHP application that I built right here on my local computer. And for demonstration purposes, what I did here, initialize the application. And I'm going to just create a user, register user. So as you can see, I created an object, which is an instance of Backendless user, populated some credentials, and then making the call register user. So for this guy, if I were to run it, let's say in Chrome. All right, so I got the message user has been registered in Backendless, and this message showed up because I echoed it right from the script. And if we switch to our console and go to the data screen, right here on our internal storage, because that's where the users table is, you see this Bobby user that we defined right here. Email address bobby@backendless.com, and name, it just showed up right here in the table. So this object was created by our PHP code, and that PHP code right now runs on my computer, but it doesn't have to. It can run anywhere in the world. It could run on the back end of your WordPress system or your PHP website. It doesn't matter. If you need additional storage where you can start dumping your objects and just adding additional business logic, you can integrate your existing PHP or new PHP backends with Backendless for everything that Backendless does. And then, for instance, to make a step further, let me just uncomment this. Since we're already a registered user, I'm going to comment this out, registration call, and then run the login function, and after that, a save function. So for the save, we'll be saving an instance of the comment class, right? So the comment class, by the way, looks like this, just a regular PHP class, okay? So if I go back to my script and just reload it, it says user logged in, an object has been saved. In fact, if I go to my data and reload, now we automatically got the comment table, as you can see right here, and we have all the properties which we populated in the PHP script that just showed up in the comment table. Now this object here in Backendless is neutral from any particular language. It is completely independent from any kind of specifics of language. So if I come in now with an Android app or iOS app and fetch data from the comment table, then I will get the object that was created by PHP, which is very powerful. And then the table was not there before. It was created simply because I was saving an instance of the comment class in my storage. So this is support for backendless SDK. And once again, all the APIs are documented. If you go to our documentation, you'll be able to see the documentation for APIs with some examples. Pretty much, there's an example for every single API function, and you'll be able to start using it right away. Okay, the PHP SDK is open source. You can find it in our GitHub repository. If you go to github.com/backendless, you'll be able to find SDK for PHP in there. Now, the support for PHP does not end right here. If you switch to business logic, right on the business logic screen, we do have a variety of things here. So under service event handlers and code blocks, we added a switch for language. So here you can switch between Java and PHP. In fact, if we go to Java, then all the code that has already been generated before I came here, let's say for data tables, there is an event handler, and it is in Java. If I switch to PHP, this code is automatically regenerated in PHP, and as you can see, this is the generated code structure. It creates the event handler that was registered and puts the comment here where you need to add your own code. Okay, if you were to add additional event handlers, let's say an event handler for function remove for table, which is called, let's say, retailer. Okay, click save, and here it is, retailer table event handler is created. And if you click download, you're going to get a zip file, which is a complete project that includes everything you need in order to create custom business logic for PHP. And you will know exactly where to add your code. In fact, I have done this previously for one of my tables, and this is what the generated code looks like. Under classes, I have my own event handler right here. Okay, so I added the function which basically gets the and this is a event handler for the contact table. It is going to run every time whenever there is a create invocation. It gets the name of the contact, puts it to the uppercase, and then sets the name. So what is going to happen with this event handler in place? Every time an entry or an object is saved in the contact table, the name of this contact will be turned to uppercase. To run this thing, it's quite easy. I do have a command prompt, and I'm sitting in the directory that is called shell, and this directory is going to be part of the zip that you download. And here there's a bunch of scripts that you can run. So one of the scripts is called code runner. All right, so I just ran code runner, which is our container, but in this case, it's sort of a debugging utility. And it recognized that I have one event handler. It uploaded to backendless, and now this code event handler is actually in the debug mode. So I switch to debug, and you see there is an event handler for a contact table that is running right here. This line corresponds to my debug process on my local computer. So now if I switch to data, and since this is an event handler for contact, let me double check this, for contact. If I go to my event handler, well, I apologize, if I go to my contact table and switch to REST console just so I can execute an REST API, I'm going to take one of the existing objects, modify it somewhat, and I'll just call it cool contact. So this is the bare minimum information that is required for the contact object. And if I execute the post request, oops, there is something wrong, I guess, with my, oh yeah, comma's missing. If I execute the post request, now the contact is created. Now, switching back to data browser, notice that cool contact is in the uppercase, even though when I executed this request, some characters were in lowercase. So the reason it is in the uppercase as cool contact is because this code runner that runs my PHP code actually triggered that event and executed that PHP code on my computer, send it back to backendless cloud, and that's where the data ended up in the database. If I were to promote that code and deploy it into production, then I would not need this process here. Then everything would be running in backendless, and I just quote unquote enhanced my backend with something that in this case not very useful, just bringing it to uppercase. But in your cases, you can start building real application logic that is going to be part of your application. So PHP support is very strong. It's quite powerful and very versatile. So if you are a PHP guy, or if your organization deals with PHP, you can do a lot of very, very cool things. All right, let's take a look if there are any questions that I could answer. All right, we are good. And let's move on. Okay, some additional things that you will find in backendless, and this is sort of in the category of enhancements. Let's start with logging. So if I go to manage and then log management, we added support for integration with Loggly and Elasticsearch, which are third-party services from our perspective, but their core competency is sort of business intelligence by inspecting log files. So as your application uses backend logging and logs are generated, if you were to turn on these integrations and add some information from Loggly in terms of the user token and so on, then backendless will automatically start uploading all the log information from our servers into Loggly in Elasticsearch. And as a net effect of this, you will be able to go to Loggly and start seeing all the log messages from your mobile applications and start doing some business intelligence and figure out what's going on based on the data that they get and how they go and parse and work through it. So this is extremely useful if once you start having a real app and let's say you start adding information about analytics and so on into the log messages, you can start deriving a lot of extra value just by working with Loggly and Elasticsearch, since we sort of pass on the log information from us to these two services. Okay, so something else that we did in terms of improvements in the file section, you can we added support for unzipping files. So if we detect an archive, then in the actions there's going to be an icon that says unzip file, and you click on this, and then the contents of any given zip file will be extracted into a directory within your file storage. Okay. Also, quite recently, we did an update to 3.0 that is extremely significant, and the significance of it is from the security perspective. So I switched to users and security and restrictions, and this is a list of application roles, and you can see that this list is a lot bigger than it used to be. And we added a bunch of roles that correspond to various client types that might be present for your app. So for instance, Android user role will correspond to anyone who makes an API call from an Android application. Or if you have an iOS app and that app makes a call, then iOS user role will be assigned to that invocation. And the cool thing about this is that you can start making decisions of how your backend works by segmenting those users. So for instance, if you want to restrict all REST-based access, you can click on REST user and just put every single cell here into this red X by disabling access to these functions. So here, no one who would be using REST would be able to invoke API methods on your backend if you were to do so. The real reason, or the underlying reason why we needed to come up with this, was actually custom business logic. And we heard from a lot of users in our support forum that said, whenever I execute some business logic on the backend, I want to make sure that that backend logic has special privileges that perhaps other types of users do not have. So first we created a server code user role, and that role could really be associated with a super user kind of account. And then for the server code role, you can assign special permissions for either globally right here, or at the table level, at the object level, at the file level, and so on. But then we thought, well, if we're going to create this role for server code, let's just create roles for all other user types. And this is what we came up with. And it gives you a lot of flexibility. So these are very, very significant changes that we have introduced in 3.0 and shortly after that. Let's see. I think this is all that I wanted to discuss with you today from the perspective of what 3.0 is about and the changes that went into it. I'm going to go back to my presentation, and I do have one slide, which is just a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please start asking them now, and I'll be more than happy. We have about 15 minutes left, so I'll just focus on the questions right now. Okay, there is a question. Let's see. So the question is, when you have an updated version of Backendless, how can it be updated? How can one update the standalone version? There are two ways to do this. So one way is in your existing backend. Let's say you have installed standalone. You can run the export function. And the export function is available right from the console. So going back here, if you go to Manage, Export, you can export everything. So just select every single thing and then click Export, and that's going to generate a zip file. And you can get the zip file, delete your standalone installation, reinstall it, and then just do the import. And import is symmetric. It is available right here on the import, and you can just click on this single zip file and then import it through that. That's sort of like I would imagine that's not the best. It's fairly straightforward way, but not the best one, because you just don't want to delete everything you have. An alternative would be, along with the updates that we're going to publish, we're going to start publishing just the zip files that contain the deltas. More than likely, it's going to be just a collection of jars and some directories for console if there are changes in the console. And using that, you can just basically do the pointed upgrades for individual files, or perhaps run an SQL script if there are any changes in the database that we have. And this way, you'll be able to upgrade your standalone installation to the latest and greatest. So we are working on the doc for standalone, and that's definitely going to be highlighted in there as well. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, the next question is, can I migrate from parse to backendless? Not only can, but you should. This is really a no-brainer, for the reason that with backendless, you will be able to save a lot of money. Parse, their free tier is at 30 requests per second. As soon as you go to 40, they will charge you, I think, $100 per month. As soon as you go to 50, and this is our free tier, 50, you'll already be spending $200 per month with Parse. To migrate from Parse to Backendless, it will boil down to two things. One, migrating your data from their storage to our storage. And this single zip import will support Parse's export. So you should be able to do that. And also updating your app. As far as the updating the app, that should be also fairly straightforward, because a lot of APIs that they provide, they operate on the same concepts that we do. So you should be able to do this. But if you need help with migrating your app from Parse to Backendless, we can help you. We do have professional services team that has done these projects before. We're quite familiar with how Parse works, for the reason that you're not the first who asked this question, and we should be able to help you out. So if you need help, please send an email to info@backendless.com. All right, so the next question is, can you share an estimate on when full JavaScript on server-side business logic will be available? I can give you a rough estimate. What I can tell you for sure is that work is happening right now. So we are working on support for a code runner. Code runner is our container. We have code runner for Java. We have code runner for PHP. We are working on code runner for JavaScript. That will support service, event handlers, timers, which is the automated cron jobs that you can execute, and services. I estimate that an early preview version may be available as early as hopefully March, maybe April. Uh, we'll see, but that work is happening. We'll more than likely will publish a beta first that you can start trying out and give us suggestions and come back with feedback. So that is definitely happening, and it's going to be soon. It is one of our highest priorities to provide support for server-side JavaScript. However, you can actually use server-side JavaScript today in backendless, not to implement event handlers or timers. But if you go to Files and select the Web directory, and under Web there is a folder called Scripts. Okay, and scripts, if you put a GS file in here, that can be an Express.js script. So let's take a look at hello.js. So this is the contents of hello.js, and as you can see, it's the most trivial Express.js application. All right, so when you send a request to that file, it's going to get executed. All right, so here what I'm going to do is for hello.js, I'm going to get the public URL by clicking this icon, and then if I open this in a browser, there you go, we got the hello world. So this hello world was executed by a Node.js script running inside of backendless. Okay, there are more complex examples here. So if you go to Web Scripts Examples, there is an example called Shopping Cart that has a lot of scripts here. So you can actually get the URL for index.html, okay, right here, paste it in the browser, and then you can run this all those Node.js scripts through this file. So here you can add an item, add items, just follow the instructions here, and you can see how individual scripts are written. So every single JS file has its own URL and is being invoked by this sample. So Node.js support is already available, but it's available from the perspective of backendless hosting scripts. I mean individual scripts residing in backendless hosting. And we are adding support for event handlers, timers, and services, like automatically generated services that give you the API just by deploying your code. So that's what I meant when I said it's coming in March or April. So hopefully that answers your question about Node.js. All right, next question. It says I cannot see the marketplace tab in myself. Can you see? I assume you're asking whether you can see the marketplace icon in your self-hosted version. You should be able to. So whenever you install Backendless and log into Backendless console, you should see the marketplace icon. If you do not, please open the ticket at support.backendless.com and let us know about it. But that marketplace icon should be there. And I think I should correct myself, because originally when we released standalone version, the marketplace icon was not there. I think I take it back. Yeah, you will not see it there. It is coming up soon. We just finished a couple of changes that prevented us from exposing marketplace. My apologies. When I said that you can do it today, that is not true. You can actually do it very soon, perhaps in the next release, immediate release of the standalone, which should be sometime maybe this week or next week. So yes, Raymond, my apologies. You cannot see it today, and that is correct, but that's coming. Let's move on to the next question. Java hosted APIs debugging. How early can we get it? Debugging of business logic in Java works today. It is available, and you can actually do local debugging of your Java code that is interacting with Backendless core. In fact, if you go to our documentation and open the docs for business logic and a quick start, that will tell you, that will give you a full start of how the debugging works. There is a section on debugging that you can use this information to actually learn how the debugging of Java services works. That is there today, and it's one of the most beautiful features that we have. I'm very proud that Backendless really is the only platform in the world that allows you to debug your Java and PHP code locally before you deploy it to the cloud. So it is a very, very powerful feature, and it works today. If it doesn't, or if you cannot find it or have any questions, once again, please post your questions to support.backendless.com. We monitor that forum constantly and try to respond pretty much right away. Okay. Question. No SQL database support like MongoDB and RethinkDB. Excellent question. The way our architecture works for Marketplace. So if I go to Marketplace and then connectors under databases, the architecture itself allows us to create really infinite number of connectors that can be plugged into Backendless. So it really is a matter of time before you start seeing those connectors for NoSQL databases or anything that show up here. We put a lot of thought, made a lot of architectural changes to allow this. So right now, it's just a matter of time before these connectors start showing up. In fact, these connectors are so flexible that we could create a connector for a file system. It doesn't make any sense. Your database should not be organized as files, but individual objects could actually be saved as files, and a connector for that would be possible. A little bit of an extreme, but gives you an idea of how flexible that system is. Okay. All right. These are all the questions that I got so far. We're almost out of time, so if you guys have any more questions, please send them here, and I'll be happy to answer them. If you don't know how to get a hold of us, it's very easy. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. On Facebook, go to facebook.com/backendless. Like our page, you'll start getting all the updates. We promise not to spam you a whole lot. On Twitter, we are at backendless. Also, follow us there. And if you have any questions, once again, the support page. If you like what you see, if you like Backendless, we really need your help. Please help us spread the word. I think we do have a fantastic platform here that is just way better than many other alternatives, and we just need your help in spreading the word and letting the world know that it is the best backend as a service system that you can find out there. All right, I see there is a question here. Can you share how sustainable our business is? Can you safely bet on us? Well, I'll start by saying that we don't have any outside investment, okay? Which to a lot of people may seem like that's just not very sustainable. But I'm going to say that we have been in business for 3.5 years, okay? We have a fairly large team. We're still a startup, but we're doing good in a way where we can actually support ourselves. We can run a service that is fairly expensive. Amazon fees are no small. We start seeing a lot of applications going into App Store, and we are generating revenue. We are generating revenues through Marketplace, through Standalone for people who expand. From Managed, we have several customers running Managed Backendless. So we are doing good with revenue. Okay, we're not going to be bankrupt for sure. The question is how fast we become very, very big. Okay, I'm going to take it easy. I don't want to become super big, super fast, because that just leads to a lot of problems. But the real question is, how successful are we going to be? And hopefully we'll be very successful. So, and it's because we take a different approach. We really take care of our users and support. We'll listen to what you say. If you have suggestions about features, we'll listen to it. Most of them, about 99% of the features suggested on our forum, go into the roadmap, and that shows, because people come back to us and they love what they see and they become devoted customers, and hopefully you will follow that pattern. So if that's not enough of if it's not convincing of how sustainable we are, I can share more information, perhaps in a private call. So if you would like to discuss, please send me an email. I'm at mark@backendless.com, and I'll be happy to discuss this with you. All right. There is a question on support for backendless on Heroku or cloud hosting. So backendless cloud hosting is definitely supported. You can, and I assume you're talking about Google Cloud. So you can run it on Google Cloud. You can actually, there is a virtual machine for that. You can run it on Rackspace. If you get it just bare metal or any other instance, you can run our installers and get it there. So the minimum requirements are, I believe, for altogether, it's 4 gigabytes of space. I run backendless on my Mac here, which has 8 gigs of RAM, and it's a quad-core system. With everything else that I run, and of course this is maybe a development environment, it runs very smoothly. From some customers that I heard that ran in a standalone version on their own computers, and those could be like quad-core, they were getting some ridiculous amount of API calls per second, like close to 70 or 80 APIs per second, and that's free on a single computer. With what parse charges for 30, you can run standalone with 70 APIs per second, and that's not going to cost you anything. So the requirements are not very stringent on the hardware, and because the software has been optimized quite nicely in a lot of areas.